Lately, it's been like an immediate block, like my ability to immediately feel that feeling of the wish fulfilled. And if you know Neville Goddard, if you know that particular type of thought, you know what I'm talking about. But that has been like an immediate block for whatever reason. Like I'm like, okay, I need to, if I'm in a bad mood, like, okay, I know I can get to a place emotionally and feel that feeling of not being in a bad mood, or just feeling like, okay, this is what I need to happen or want to happen, and automatically feeling the joy of having that happen. And that has usually been automatic for me for the last few years, except for these last few months. So I just wanted to know if you had any insight on that, if it's already in your courses, if you can just direct me to which course to focus on mostly, that would be great.
So the answer is that you normalized. And what that is that, and I was examining the normalization phenomena last night. And again, because I find it a little bit odd and also a little annoying. And let me explain it. It's like you can do certain things. There's so many examples of this, but you can do certain things and you can feel so excited about it. And it even is almost like the magic for you. But then after a certain point, and that time frame is variable to different people and based on whatever it is also that you're doing, now you don't feel the same thing anymore. And it's because that same thing that allows us to be able to live in this environment because we're durable enough, we adapt, also makes us normalize to our spiritual powers. So what happens sometimes is the mind, because it's not in that feedback loop anymore, it doesn't feel the intensity of the first day or the first time. It will sometimes make us think that it's not happening. Now, there are physical things that can confirm this. Like if you practice, like, let's say you get massages or, excuse me, you get massages or you go into the sauna or something, you will find like your first few tries that you're just like, oh my goodness, after this, you're just melting. Like your whole body is just like relaxed and, you're in this state. You go back again, second time, it happens again. You're like, man, I found my thing. And then somewhere in there, though, it could be the 10th time, it could be in the 50th time, you're not going to feel the same way that you did the first time. But is the same thing happening? Physically, yes. Spiritually, no. Because spiritually, what goes on is it's like, that's why we call it the quest. It's like once you get to one level of the degrees of the spine, now it's time to pack your stuff and get ready to ascend again. Now, of course, there is warning around this, meaning like the sages, the masters, etc., always explain this is why they talked about like basically like a Prius version or a low footprint version of your astral being, where it doesn't need, you got a lot of headroom. That's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't need this consistent confirmation that it's connected to be very strong. It could do that by just looking at a flower, and then all of a sudden you're just like in this ecstasy. You see what I mean? So they try to back down their senses the same way that if you go without certain things, you have more of a craving for it. Or if you remove certain things like salt and sugar from your diet, your senses go up higher. So you literally need to, like we were showing in those pictures, there's like these bodies and they need to be calibrated. You have to literally actually go in and kind of recalibrate your body to be able to experience that same state again energetically. And so I trust that that makes sense. Again, I want to probably roll back around some vibratory analysis. I know that's available for soul coaches that have ambassador pros, but we're going to be doing some creative stuff in Discord to kind of suss that out, to see how, since we know this normalization process is in place, it's happening to me. It's also it's happened to me before. I've had to come back from it. Some people think this is burnout, even depression. All those things can kind of look like what normalization really is, because you can also get so high that you can maybe fall a little short of achieving that. And then it could start appearing like you're never going to get back to that stage when that's still activated, but something even greater is even opening up, right? So yeah, I trust that that gives you some clarity on, exactly why. Well, I can't say absolutely, But one of the things that you should pay attention to, and then what vibratory energetics is going to do, is it's going to show you also where those meters are, like how you increase sensitivity or decrease. Because, like some will admit that the stimulus is high, so high that it's erratic. So we got like two different issues. Some feel bludgeoned, where it's like, I just don't feel connected, or I don't feel like that space. And then some feel overwhelmed. I'm just so like activated, I can't focus. I can't like really ground into anything. And I feel like I'm all over the place, you see? So that's why it's like, okay, those are two extremes. What we're talking about is bringing it into balance, and then being okay also, like the Zen master, basically, like you're okay when nothing's happening too. You see what I mean? And being able to normalize your body back to that, because I also found like a lot of vegetarian situation. That's why I'm kind of like practicing balance right now after being a vegetarian for 25 years. It was creating mental stigmas. It was creating other stuff that is also associated when you do anything for 25 years without making changes and transformations in that space also. So our consciousness is always wanting to be entertained in that way. It's the bride. And, we got to sometimes go in and clear out the cobwebs to things and repetitious paths that we've been walking, because they're now normal, and go deeper into self, to another level of awareness and awakening, which will always be there. This is exactly why, like, some complain about this. It looks like there's always a question after a question. I'm like, and then? Because if we're just powering ourselves on questions, then we got infinite fuel. But I'm just serious, is that, I mean, there is a greater and greater of awareness that is going to keep happening as you come into this connection with all of the other things that you've been mentally separated from. So the more you gather, the more filled you become, right? But that feeling never stops, on that path. Literally, the feeling never stops, because you're constantly expanding. And so, yeah, in every way, we remove the division components. But we also are still mindful for this vehicle, which in certain ways, like a semi is in a sim or a simulation. And in that, it needs to be maintained. It needs a manual, right? So it's actual instructions to maintaining the vehicle, and it ain't the Bible, right? Or not in its whole, at least in that way. So yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you so much. That makes sense. So basically, in a way, I've kind of desensitized.
Yeah, it happens, but
I've
it doesn't
gone,
mean that you're not there. That's the weird part. It's like you actually have the power. And I went through this process because I hadn't had a quote unquote experience for a while, and I started like just doing these mental things like, man, I haven't had an experience in a while. I wonder if I need to, and then fill in the blank. And in this case, for me, it was like, maybe I'm doing too much shows, or maybe I'm doing, the monkey mind is crazy. So he's fucking crazy. I'll listen to monkey. But anyway, if he could get you in that state, it's like, well, maybe you're doing too much show. Maybe it's time to pull back from this. Maybe it's time to do this. Maybe it's time to do that. The big maybe, right? And so I went to sleep on it. And that morning, oh my goodness, when the sun rose up, I went into a full blown activation. It just kept going. And it just kept going, and boom, and I broke into all this space that was just like white, pure frequency, like nothing could live there because the frequency was too high. So I went to a whole activation process, and then I wrote that down in the journal, and then I woke up, which didn't really feel like sleep. And I was like, and then immediately what came to mind is, hey, now, I mean, we can't keep doing this to keep you, you know what I mean, serious, because you're like, you need this to feel like you're connected, but you're always connected. You don't necessarily need to be flying around the universe at 1,000 hertz in order to be in this. But here's something, we throw you something, you know what I mean? So just know that you're always in the heart, right? So that's what it is. Thank you so much for connecting in the space and inspiring that.
Thank you.
All right.
Wholeness.